You don't get to do whatever you like with me. I am your wife.
Leave me alone.
I own you. You are my property.
Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel for awesome stories.
Every night, the sound of yelling and crashing came from the house. It was nothing new. Neighbors had gotten used to it. They knew what was happening inside. But that night was different. The silence that followed the usual chaos was so loud, it made people uneasy. She was gone. No one had heard from her since. Musa sat in his chair, nervously tapping his fingers on the armrest. He looked out the window, expecting to see her walking up the street as usual. But she didn't come. The house was too quiet. He stood up and paced around the room, his heart racing. Something wasn't right. For months he had beaten her, pushed her down and hurt her, but he always made sure no one saw. The bruises were easy to hide with makeup, and no one ever asked too many questions. But tonight, it was different. The house was empty. There was no sign of her. He called her phone over and over. No answer. Musa started to panic. He knew she had planned to leave him before, but he had always stopped her. He had told her that if she ever left, there would be consequences, but this time, he wasn't sure if she was ever coming back. The first few weeks after she disappeared were tough for him. He tried to go on with his daily life, but everything felt off. He couldn't focus at work, he couldn't sleep at night. The memory of her eyes, full of fear and sadness, haunted him. He tried to act like everything was fine, but deep down, he knew that he was living his worst nightmare. Days turned into weeks. Musa began to lose control. His temper, which had always been unpredictable, grew worse. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Where had she gone? Why hadn't she come back? He missed her, but not in the way he thought he would. It wasn't love he missed. It was the control. He missed being the one who decided everything. He couldn't eat. All he could think about was her, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Her angry, hurt face, the one he had ignored for so long. One afternoon, Musa went to the grocery store. He was trying to keep his mind busy, but the loneliness was overwhelming. As he stood in line, something caught his eye. A woman was standing a few feet away. She looked familiar, but it wasn't her. It couldn't be. Musa's heart skipped a beat. He tried to ignore the feeling in his chest, but it wouldn't go away. He stared at the woman for a moment, but she didn't notice. She was busy looking at the shelves. That night, Musa went home and tried to distract himself, but all he could think about was that woman. He tried to convince himself it wasn't her, but the more he thought about it, the more he was sure. The woman in the store had been her. He started to check her social media accounts again. It had been a while since he had looked. He couldn't believe what he saw. There were pictures of her, smiling, living her life without him. She had gone on trips, she had made new friends. She was happy. Musa was furious. He couldn't stand it. How dare she leave him? How dare she live without him? He had always made sure she knew she couldn't survive without him. But now, she was living her life like he had never existed. He grabbed his phone and called her number. He was shaking with anger. She answered after a few rings. "Where are you?" he shouted into the phone. "Why haven't you come back?" But the voice on the other end wasn't hers. "Who is this?" Musa asked, his stomach sinking. "This is her friend," the voice said. "She's safe. She's not coming back." The words hit Musa like a punch to the stomach. He felt a rush of panic flood his body. His worst fear was coming true. She was gone. For good. Musa didn't know what to do. His thoughts were racing. He had lost control, and now he was losing her forever. Days passed, but the feeling of panic didn't leave. He couldn't stop thinking about her. He couldn't shake the image of her walking away, leaving him behind. He had hurt her, broken her, and now she was free. Free to live without him. But Musa wasn't used to losing. He had always been in control. He didn't know what it was like to be the one left behind. One day, as he walked through the park, he saw something that made his heart stop. There she was, sitting on a bench, looking peaceful and calm. She looked different, more confident,
For a
like she had
moment,
finally
Musa
found
couldn't
herself.
move.
He wanted to walk up to her, grab her and bring her back, but he stayed frozen in place, watching her from a distance. She turned and saw him. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, just calm, and that was worse than anything he had ever seen. The days that followed were harder for him than ever. Musa's thoughts became darker. He couldn't stop obsessing over her. He would sit in his room, staring at the walls, thinking about the things he had done to her, the way he had controlled her, broken her down, and pushed her away. Now she was gone, and no matter how hard he tried to get her back, it was too late. His world slowly started to fall apart. Musa began to lose his grip on reality. He couldn't escape the thoughts of her. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Every time he opened his eyes, he thought he saw her standing there, just out of reach. He couldn't escape his past, the things he had done, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't outrun the consequences. One night, Musa stood in front of the mirror. He didn't recognize the person looking back at him. The man he saw was someone he didn't want to be. Someone he hated. He had ruined everything. He had ruined his chance at happiness, his chance at love, and now he was left with nothing but his regrets. The thought of her being free, living a life without him, haunted him every moment. He had beaten her down, broken her spirit, and now she was gone, and there was nothing he could do to fix it. Musa couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with thoughts of her. The images of her smiling, laughing, living without him played over and over again in his head. He couldn't escape them. It was like a never-ending loop. He stood up, his hands trembling. He walked to the window and looked out into the night. The moonlight seemed cold, distant, and unforgiving. His reflection in the window was a shadow of the man he used to be. Why had he done it? Why had he treated her so badly? He knew the answer deep down, but it was something he refused to admit to himself. He had been scared. Scared of losing control. Scared of being vulnerable. He had beaten her to keep her close, to make her depend on him. But now it was clear. He had lost her. And it was his own fault. Musa spent the next few days in a fog. He wandered around, unsure of what he was doing or where he was going. He called her again, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He sent messages, but they were ignored. His attempts to reach her only made him feel more desperate. He thought about going to her friends, asking where she was. But he knew they wouldn't tell him. They had seen the way he treated her. They had seen the bruises. They had heard the shouting. They didn't want him in her life anymore. Then, one evening, Musa found a letter on his doorstep. It was addressed to him. The handwriting was neat, unfamiliar. His heart raced as he tore it open. The letter read, "Musa, you've made your mistakes, but I won't let them define me anymore. I'm free now. I'm finally free, and I won't go back to that life. Don't look for me. I've moved on. Let me go. Let yourself go. Sarah." Musa's hands shook as he read the letter over and over again. His mind couldn't process it. He had read it wrong. It had to be wrong. She couldn't just leave like this. She couldn't just erase everything that had happened between them. But it was real. She had left. And now there was no way to undo the damage he had done. Days passed, but the pain in Musa's chest didn't go away. He tried to drown it out with work, with distractions, but nothing worked. Every time he was alone, his thoughts turned to Sarah. The way she had looked at him, the way she had tried to make him see the truth, the way he had refused to listen. He remembered the last night they had been together, the night before she disappeared. She had begged him to change. She had cried, asking him to stop hurting her. He had promised her he would, but deep down he had known he wouldn't. He couldn't. And now, she was gone. Musa stood in front of the mirror again, staring at his reflection. His eyes were empty, haunted. He had lost the one person who had ever cared about him, the one person who had tried to show him love, even when he didn't deserve it. He reached for his phone again, but this time he didn't call her. He didn't send a message. He just sat there, staring at the screen, knowing it was too late. A week later, Musa went to the police station. He had been avoiding it for days, but now something inside him told him it was time. He needed answers. He needed closure. He walked up to the front desk and asked to speak to someone. The officer behind the counter raised an eyebrow, but motioned for him to wait. Moments later, a detective walked into the room. He was tall, with a serious expression on his face. Musa recognized him from the news. Detective Collins. "Can I help you?" Detective Collins asked, his tone cold. Musa swallowed hard. I need to know where Sarah is. She's gone, and I think something's happened to her." The detective looked at him for a long moment. Then, he shook his head. "We've been looking into it, but there's nothing we can do until we know for sure what happened. If you're really concerned about her, I suggest you leave it to us. You're not going to find any answers on your own." Musa's heart sank. He felt helpless. Once again, he was being told to step back, to let go. But he couldn't. He couldn't let her go. Not like this. Weeks turned into months, and Musa's world began to fall apart. He was consumed by thoughts of Sarah. His every waking moment was spent wondering where she was, if she was okay, if she was safe. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being haunted by his own actions. One night, as he sat in his apartment, his phone buzzed. He looked down at the screen, his heart skipping a beat. It was a message from an unknown number. "Musa Sarah is safe. She's gone. Don't try to find her. Anonymous." The message left him frozen, unable to move. His hands shook as he read the words over and over again. Sarah was gone, and he couldn't fix it. He couldn't bring her back. He had lost everything: his wife, his control, his chance at redemption. Musa fell into a deep depression. He tried to keep his life together, but it was impossible. His relationships with friends and family began to crumble. His work suffered. He couldn't escape the emptiness that filled him, and every night the same thought haunted him. He had destroyed the one good thing in his life. Back when Sarah had been by his side, back when things weren't so complicated. He could still hear her voice in his head, soft and pleading, asking him to stop, asking him to change. But every time he tried to move forward, the weight of his past pulled him back. He spent more time than ever alone. His apartment felt like a prison, a place filled with silence that was suffocating him. He tried to distract himself with alcohol, but it only made things worse. The more he drank, the clearer the guilt became. He couldn't escape it. One evening, as Musa sat in his dimly lit apartment, a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He hesitated for a moment. He wasn't expecting anyone, but the knock came again, louder this time. Musa stood up, his heart pounding. He walked slowly to the door, his hand shaking as he reached for the handle. When he opened it, he was shocked to find an older man standing in front of him. The man had a serious expression on his face, his eyes hard and piercing. "I need to talk to you," the man said, his voice low and firm. Musa blinked, trying to process what was happening. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer directly. Instead, he stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I'm looking for Sarah," he said, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for something. "You know where she is, don't you?" Musa froze. His heart skipped a beat. "What do you want with her?" The man didn't hesitate. "I want to make sure she's safe. She's been in hiding long enough." Musa felt a rush of panic. "What do you mean, hiding?" he asked, his voice trembling. The man looked at him, his eyes cold. "You really don't know, do you?" He shook his head slowly. "She's been running from you, Musa. She's been scared for her life, and I've been helping her stay safe." The words hit Musa like a slap to the face. He felt dizzy, disoriented. He stepped back from the door, his mind racing. "What are you talking about? I didn't hurt her like that. I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt her." The man's expression didn't soften. "You're lying to yourself. Sarah was afraid of you. She left to save herself. And now you've come this far, but you're still stuck in your guilt. It's not about her anymore. It's about you. Musa felt his chest tighten. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. The guilt was choking him, and he couldn't breathe. The man didn't wait for him to respond. Sarah's gone, and she's never coming back to you. You need to accept that. With those words, the man turned and walked out of the apartment, leaving Musa standing in the doorway, frozen in shock. The next few days were a blur for Musa. He couldn't focus on anything. The man's words echoed in his mind, over and over again. She was gone. She was never coming back. And it was all his fault. He tried to call her again. He sent her messages, but nothing ever came back. No replies, no calls. She had truly vanished from his life, and he was left with nothing but part, the guilt, the shame, the regret. It all piled on top of him, crushing him with its weight. He couldn't escape it. He didn't know how to live with himself. One evening, after another long day of trying to distract himself, Musa walked out of his apartment. The air was cooler than usual, and the sky was heavy with clouds, as if the world itself was mourning with him. He wandered through the empty streets, his mind still spinning with the thought of Sarah. As he walked aimlessly, he found himself standing in front of a church. The lights were dim, but there was a sense of peace about the place. Musa had never been religious, but something about the church called to him. He wasn't sure why, but he stepped inside. The interior was quiet, with only the sound of his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Musa found a pew and sat down, staring at the altar. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe answers, maybe peace, or maybe just a way to escape the overwhelming guilt that had consumed him. He closed his eyes, trying to clear his mind, but the thoughts kept coming. Thoughts of Sarah, of the mistakes he had made, of the pain he had caused. He had tried to push her away, but now he was the one left in the dark, unable to fix anything. He sat there for what felt like hours, his mind racing, his heart aching. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he stood up and walked out of the church, a heavy weight still on his chest. Over the next few months, Musa tried to piece his life back together, but it wasn't easy. He continued to drink, to lose himself in distractions, but nothing helped. The memories of Sarah, of the way he had treated her, never left him. He couldn't escape it. But one day, as he sat in his apartment, staring at the walls, something inside him snapped. He couldn't keep running from his mistakes. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. It was time to face the truth. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. This time, the phone rang for a long time before it was answered. "Musa," a voice said on the other end. It was her friend, the one who had helped her escape. Musa's heart pounded in his chest. He took a deep breath, then spoke. "I need to know where she is. I need to apologize. I need to make things right." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, the voice spoke again. "You can't fix it, Musa. You can't undo the damage you've done. But if you're serious about changing, if you're serious about making amends, then maybe you can start by facing yourself." Musa closed his eyes, his throat tight. He realized that he wasn't going to get the answers he wanted. But maybe, just maybe, he could start to heal. It wasn't about Sarah anymore. It was about him. It was about changing himself, learning to live with the consequences, and hopefully finding peace somewhere along the way. Months passed, and Musa tried his best to follow the advice he had been given. He sought help, attended therapy, and worked on understanding the person he had become. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the temptation to give up was overwhelming, but with time, he began to understand that change wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a journey. A painful, slow journey, and for the first time in a long while, he was ready to walk that path. One afternoon, as Musa sat at his usual spot in a local cafe, sipping his coffee, he heard the faint sound of someone calling his name. It was a soft voice, one he knew well, but hadn't heard in so long. He turned around, his heart stopping in his chest. There she was, Sarah. She was standing in the doorway, looking as calm and composed as ever. Her eyes were soft, but there was a guarded look about her, something Musa hadn't seen before. She wasn't the same person he had hurt, but there was something about her that was familiar, something he had missed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside seemed to fade away, and all Musa could hear was the pounding of his heart. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice steady, but there was a hint of sadness. "I didn't come here to reopen old wounds," she said quietly. "I came because I wanted you to know that I'm okay. I've moved on. And you've made progress, I see it." Musa swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I know I can't undo the past, but I've been trying to change. I know I hurt you and I'll never forgive myself for that, but I wanted to say that I've changed. I want to make things right." She nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "I know you have, and that's why I'm here, Musa. To tell you that sometimes people change. But it doesn't mean we always get another chance. Sometimes the best we can do is leave the past behind and move forward in different directions." Musa felt his heart drop. The weight of her words hit him harder than anything he had ever heard. He had been hoping for a second chance, but it wasn't coming. She had moved on, just like she said. "I understand," he whispered. "I don't expect you to come back to me. I just wanted you to know that I've learned. I can't change what I did, but I won't make the same mistakes again." Sarah smiled faintly, her expression softening. "I believe you, Musa, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is accept that the things we want most aren't always what's best for us. Let go of the guilt and let go of the past." With that, she turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Musa behind, a man who was no longer chained to his mistakes. Musa sat in silence, the coffee in his hands cold now. He felt a strange peace washing over him. It wasn't the peace of knowing he had gotten everything he wanted. It was the peace that comes from accepting the things you cannot change. For the first time, he understood that moving forward didn't mean going back to the things he had lost. It meant making peace with the person he was becoming, even if it was without her. As he left the cafe and stepped into the bright afternoon sun, he knew the road ahead would still be difficult. But it wasn't about fixing the past anymore. It was about taking responsibility for the future and learning to live with himself, finally free from the weight of his old life.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more.